That's the point. I'm sorry. So do you say we as in like we are going to do a version of that?
Well, I thought you could help me.
Oh, cool. Well, I would have no problem.
Yeah, kind of just with the, because you are so not only a magician with magic things, but also with words.
Uh-huh.
So maybe if you could help me.
So, yeah, totally. That's so interesting. My mind begins to spin. And I have a
So at first we suggested maybe Janelle could come out at the end of one of Jim's shows and just read a statement or something. And Jim said, that's probably not going to work.
As you guys know, in this world, audiences come based upon how things are marketed and booked. And
Jim said, he has to worry about sort of as a business, the expectations of his sponsors and even the audience who are looking for a certain thing.
I'm just thinking like a producer because I'm totally up.
So we were like, yeah, okay, fair enough. Maybe we could be like a Q&A after the show or something like that.
I don't know. I'd have to really process it, but I'm totally open to it. I would always love to help Janelle help her put it all together. And I think though that.
So eventually we landed on a plan. Jim was going to be doing his show up in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And we decided, well, we could just do a show with him and Janelle the next night. So along with producers Latif Nasser and Annie McEwen, we headed up to St. Cloud, met up with Janelle, and that night we went to all go see Jim's show. It's a pretty big venue. There was probably 1,000 people there, all college students. And of course, because Janelle was there right after he did the sort of personal journey back to God.
Check this out. I looked at it. She's here tonight.
It's a little bit hard to hear, but there was literally a shudder of energy that went through the crowd at that moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the stage. This is Janelle Jenny. Come on up here. So, yeah, I got your accent now.
Well, you're the much better speaker than me. But what I can say is I encourage all of you to consider signing
So
up.
Janelle just pointed out that the National Bone Marrow Registry would be there that night, and she encouraged everybody to, sign up and have a chance to save a life and do something good.
So please do that, or at least consider it.
She wants a tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
And then Jim had her show the whole audience her puzzle piece tattoo.
I have a tattoo. Only one still.
There it is right there. See that there?
And once Janelle had stepped back off the stage,
Before we close, I wanted to know if I could pray for you. Do you guys still pray in Minnesota? Right down here's hell yeah, we do. All right, good. We're going to pray. All right, so would you mind? I told you you could leave. I want you to pray this prayer with me. Just say this in your heart. Say, Lord Jesus, tonight I choose to turn and stop living for myself, my own version of my own story, and I want to trust you. I don't have all the answers, but I know you do. And tonight, by faith, I choose to follow you. Thank you for loving me. Thank you in the midst of all of this randomness that I experienced coming after me, for being jealous for me. I love you too. In Jesus' mighty name, amen and amen.
and then just before everybody stepped out,
Also, this is very important. I'm going to be here another night. I'm going to be here tonight. We're going to be here tomorrow night. Have you guys heard of the podcast Radio Lab? Have you heard of Radio Lab, the podcast? Anybody?
that was about 3 people that shouted out.
They're in the audience. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to point them out, but they're in the audience.
Nobody cared.
And Radio Lab is going to be holding this forum. Janelle Jenny is going to tell her side of the story of what happened to her through this process. All right? All right.
So after the show, we actually got a chance to talk to some of the people from the audience.
And then hearing the whole 3 days thing, I was like, oh my God, that's, wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that she was actually here.
She's here in the room.
Think about it. I would have been so shocked to sit right next to her.
Pretty much everybody was totally floored by actually getting to see Janelle in person, and they all seemed to take her story the way Jim does.
She was a visual example of everything.
Put a face to this whole thing. Yeah.
So many things fell in line where you just have to believe, in my opinion.
So The next night,
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mark Springer.
with
and I'm-
much less fanfare in a much smaller room, like maybe 100 people there or so, with the help of the religious studies program at St. Cloud University,
Hear me okay? Yes, there I am. Oh my gosh.
we did Janelle's thing.
All right, so I'm Robert Krulwich. I am one of the co-hosts of a public radio program called Radio Lab. I want to introduce also Soren Wheeler, who is our managing editor, that's him. He's going to be adding his 2 cents from time to time. We're a very democratic show, and like nobody controls anything, and everybody pitches in, so he will too. And I want to begin by just telling you a story.
So we brought Janelle up on stage.
But Janelle, could you just come up here and sit? I guess might as well sit here.
We told her whole story of, donating and then waiting a year to find out, who Jim really was.
Talk. I had no idea that.
And these are your blood.
And then we brought Jim on stage.
All right, so Jim, the year is up.
He talked about, his whole process of recovery.
Trying to get your bearings.
He talked about how grateful and thankful he was. And then we turned back to Janelle.
Well, let's make this a little more complicated. Soren, could you just run I asked you like how you felt in that first round, and this is what you told me in the interview.
There was a part of me that felt a little bit of an imposter.
Well, no, why would you use the word imposter? Why did you choose that word?
Is this where we should start getting into the meat and potatoes of my thoughts?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part of me is, and at that time especially, thought that I'm up here, again, as this pretty hard and fast proof or very compelling narrative for a lot of people and their faith that I don't particularly share at all.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
But I knowing that.
You knew it at that point, because I think we talked about that.
But I was very concerned knowing that you didn't agree with what I believed to be true, that you would feel like you were in that spot. That's why I asked you.
I did, well, of course, and I could have declined.
Yeah.
But,
but at the same time, it doesn't make anything different than the fact that it's still what it is,
Exactly. I would have done it regardless of whatever it was. If your whole theme of your show was how great the Dallas Cowboys were and it got everybody to join the bone marrow registry, I would have got up there in a Cowboys hat.
Honestly, Jim, every time I see your show, even though I don't, adhere to the religious tenets of it, I still get that feeling. And everybody, all my family, all my friends, whatever they're religious, even my Muslim friends that I've told the story get, that feeling. And, what that feeling is a little intangible, but I think it's something even a little bigger than, that sounds so crappy to say, bigger than Jesus. That's really blasphemous, but I can't think of a better way to say it.
Can you explain what that means?
Well, that there is good in this universe and there is good in everybody, and it is regardless of, the goodness is at the top of the list of you, and everything else is follows. Your religion and your race and where you're born and your favorite pizza toppings and all of that. But at the very top is good with the capital G and it's underlined too.
All right, Jim. In your show, you have a rather gorgeous take on moral relativism. You have a string of thoughts. That this idea about being good and doing no harm and living as ethically as you know how is satisfying to some people, but in your view, it isn't really enough.
This is where obviously there's some disagreement here. I think that there is good and I think that there is evil in this world. And I think that people in and of their own, left to their own vices, left to their own devices, I think that they struggle with being good. I think that even on our best day, I think that we fall short.
And so in hearing her account, thinking what? That she's not, where does she fall short? Where does this idea lose you?
I don't, I mean, it doesn't lose me. I think it's phenomenally good. I'm not acknowledging as good. I just think that for the Christian, it's not about being good or bad. I think
What is it about?
I think it's about having a relationship with God. Does that make sense?
I guess it makes some sense.
At that point, Jim, he made it clear that he definitely wasn't condemning Janelle because she didn't have a relationship with God. But then we took a sort of different approach. We started talking about the unlikeliness of this whole story, which is one of the things that Jim talks about in his show. And so at that point, I decided I should jump in. And I say this, and I really say this only because it is our job as a show that when we hear a story like this, we dig in, we investigate, and we do that from a frame that's really focused on math, facts, science. And a couple things happen to you if you happen to be in my position. You run across stuff like this, and I'll just read from the Be a Match website. A patient's likelihood of finding a matching donor on Be the Match registry is estimated to be between 66 and 97%. The chances that you'll find a 10 to 10 match in the way that Jim and Janelle were 10 to 10 matches is around 50%.
Wait a second. That doesn't make sense to me.
There
were 8 million people. She was the one.
Yeah, let me say that this does not actually contradict with Jim and Janelle's experience of it. For that to happen to Jim is truly staggering. It could be 1 in a trillion, and like the way winning a lottery is 1 in a trillion.
But it can't be both. It
can, because what happens is if you back up away from the individual and ask not what are the chances this would happen to Jim, but what are the chances that this would happen to someone somewhere. It's like there's a story about if you're golfing and you hit a golf ball and it goes however many hundreds of yards. I don't play golf, so I don't know how far they go, but it lands on a blade of grass, and that blade of grass says, "Why me? Why would this golf ball crush me like this?" Which is a valid point. I would feel that too. But that ball was going to land on some blade of grass. So it doesn't, the why me is still a true thing. It is a true experience in which...
Well, there is still this difference, I think. The ball can't point to anything greater.
No, the argument that lurks behind this is that these things happen and it is just chance.
So this is the random view. How do you guys feel about that? That you were randomly there and you were randomly chosen isn't the word. That the ball of mercy landed on you.
I also am not coming at it from just that angle. I wonder if it was just the bone marrow transplant, if it would be, people get that all the time. I think perhaps the other bits and pieces of the puzzle maybe help shadow it in, a little bit for me. And so, I don't know, to me it's a multi-layered cake.
I thought you really don't like this idea of, like in this science version, there is no design and there is no first cause except the first random event that sets the thing in motion.
Right.
Could either of you live with that version of what just happened to you?
Yeah, well, that's perfect because it's exactly what you talk about in your show with all the different cards.
Janelle's referring to a thing in Jim's show where he talks about how unlikely any particular order of cards in a deck is.
And the idea of a particular set of cards being dealt in a particular way is 52 factorial.
Which is pretty much impossible.
It is impossible. It's an impossible number. You could, statistically, right. But yet you deal the cards and they happen right there. So this really gets into just the different viewpoints on the proverbial deck of cards and who's dealing them. Is it in a particular fashion? And I think that's, what Jim believes is that there is a proverbial dealer and I don't, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And you agree that that's pretty much the difference?
Yeah, having given thought to that, I believe that there was some sort of, mind, personality.
The I believe part is where you stand. It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Faith. Yeah,
absolutely. It is. It's faith.
And Janelle, you're his savior, I guess. You saved his life, but in some way you don't. You haven't. How do you worry about this at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And even right now on this stage, there's a part of me that, in front of all of you, that I'm sure a lot of you were at the show last night. There's a part of me that is afraid of disappointing, that I don't share what you believe to be true. I mean, your entire experience pretty much points the arrow that like I'm like an alliteration of Jesus in your story. And that's really difficult to reconcile as someone who doesn't have faith. And it makes me sad sometimes, because I think it would be a lot easier if I just believed exactly what you believed. And I think that I always am very afraid of letting that be known. Like I'm super like clammy right now just saying it in front of this many people. I just feel like people would see your story, and it's so tremendously compelling, it's unbelievable, and then see that that last piece of this little puzzle literally doesn't fit at all.
I mean, it's not like I haven't thought about that either, and how you might feel, and I empathize, and I don't know how to answer that. Yeah. You know, I just want to give you a hug. But,
yeah.
There's an unconditionality to how I feel about you that you can do no wrong in my eyes.
Yeah.
Here's for you the hardest thing. I was just trying to think about how difficult this must be. You have been saved. Your life has been saved by her. Mm-hmm. She is in effect your savior. And yet your belief is that unless she accepts Jesus, that in some sense she's outside of grace. And, you know, I don't know what you believe about hell and heaven, but that she might be punished. So what do you do about this weird contradiction? She's insisting, nope, not for me. And you're insisting, oh, no, this is the way it is. And, oh, my gosh, is it hard for you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because it's not my place to do that. I'm very sorry to everyone who listens to this, whoever feels like they got judged by a Christian. Okay. Because it's never their place to do that. And this is where I think most of the times, and everybody listening to this podcast is placed as kind of positioned or pigeonholed Christians. And what they don't understand is that I'm not commanded to do anything but to love and to start conversations, right? I'm not the one. I'm not the one who is sent into the world to judge. All right, but so putting it like that, I know where you want to go with this.
No, this is not actually an honest question. You have to love the judge that may not love the woman who saved your life. That's hard, I think.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's not my place.
I had to say, I think we were sort of expecting that maybe there would be a sharper edge to the differences between Jim and Janelle. But to be honest, their conversation that night and their story started to feel like almost an allegory for how to move through the world and hold your differences but still be one.
Let me just finish this way. Do you have a sense between the two of you? Because I mean, obviously you stay very, very good friends. I mean, that's obvious. Is there something that either of you can say that explains why you can dignifiedly but emphatically disagree and still stay in such extraordinary close touch?
I think the idea of humility and, as Jim might even say, grace is absolutely essential no matter your tenets of belief. And that's really what's going to get you through conflict. So, yeah.
And is it because you're in this big ocean of the world and the two of you are just little dots in it? And so whatever you think is still, you're in the big ocean and there you are together? Is that
I think maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And...
But do you have a bigness thing? Do you feel small?
Do I feel small?
Yeah.
I feel tiny. Humility at its root word the root is humus, which means dirt. So when you become humble, you become dirt.
That's
now
better than the sea analogy,
I could keep going. I could keep going. You know, God does with dirt is He creates things, but I won't go there. But you become dirt, and I think where we get hung up is that we want to be right, and that hasn't been brought into this yet. We want to be right, And right and wrong are, the words right and wrong are dead, I think in relationship are deadly words. I think that saying I'm right, you're wrong is not good for relationships. I think it's like, let's find where we
And have you
agree.
ever said you're right or you're wrong to her?
No,
I haven't said it to him either, I don't think.
never.
Well, that's a nice place to land.
I think so.
I think we're done. Now, that doesn't mean we're done. That means that I'm going to let these two people introduce the person who brought them together real early from the organization.
At the end of the show, we had the bone marrow registry people there and encouraged people to sign up, and quite a few did. I think maybe 20 or so. But that was pretty much nothing compared to what Jim got at the end of his show.
It's like 150 people.
Wait, say that again?
There's like 150 people signing up right now.
Did you count them?
That's our producer, Annie
It's
McEwen.
at least that.
Is this bigger than normal, or is it always like this?
This is a little bigger than normal. I think anytime that I'm actually in the show, it's a little bit better. So I've been told.
And what is it? How are you feeling when you watch this?
It's really overwhelming. Like, yeah, it kind of makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, without you, this wouldn't happen.
It's almost too big to think of.
Well, thank you, Soren.
Sure, no problem.
This piece was reported by Latif Nasser, produced by Annie McEwen with help from Bethel Hopte and Alex Overington.
Special thanks to Julie Schmidt with Be the Match.
And by the way, they are one of the several bone marrow registries. This is the one that Jim and Janelle were connected to. It is called Be the Match. And if you want to donate, well, we've made a special arrangement with them. All you have to do is go to join.bethematch.org. That's capital B, capital T, capital M, one word. Join.bethematch.org/Radiolab, and you'll get a spit swab thing in the mail, and maybe you can save a life. It's free if you are under 45. So again, that's join.bethematch.org/Radiolab.
Also thanks to Ginger Galvin, Bryce Harney, and Stu True with The Maze.
And to Mark Springer, Kevin Sharp, Jim Gray,